Please stand for the reading of the gospel. The gospel reading is Matthew chapter 25, beginning with the 31st verse. When the Son of Man comes in his glory and all the angels with him, then he will sit on his glorious throne. Before him will be gathered all the nations, and he will separate them one from another as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. And he will place the sheep at his right hand, but the goats at the left. Then the king will say to those at his right hand, "Come, O blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. I was naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to me." Then the righteous will answer him, "Lord, when did we see thee hungry and feed thee, or thirsty and give thee drink? And when did we see thee a stranger and welcome thee, or naked and clothe thee? And when did we see thee sick or in prison and visit thee?" And the king will answer them, "Truly I say to you, as you did it to one of the least of these my brethren, you did it to me." Then he will say to those at his left hand, "Depart from me, you cursed, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry, and you gave me no food. I was thirsty, and you gave me no drink. I was a stranger, and you did not welcome me. Naked, and you did not clothe me. Sick and in prison, and you did not visit me." Then they will also answer, "Lord, when did we see thee hungry or thirsty, or a stranger, or naked, or sick, or in prison, and did not minister to thee?" Then he will answer them, "Truly I say to you, as you did it not to one of the least of these, you did it not to me." And they will go away into eternal punishment, and the righteous into eternal life. This is the word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God.
Christ the King. Cynics would say, if God's the king, if he's ruling, he's not doing a very good job. It's a mess. It's a mess down here. The question is, what is the shape of Christ's kingship? I love the way what we sang, if you heard that, those wounds yet visible above, in beauty glorified, right? Jesus was a few days from bearing those wounds on Holy Week, Holy Tuesday. He walked in the city of Jerusalem, came up the steps, walked among the colonnades of the temple, and he taught all day long. Matthew records 212 verses of his talking. That's a lot. That'd take a while. He talked all day long. It's as if he knows his time is short. He has a few things to say. He actually has a lot of things to say. And we might wish that Jesus, with not much time left, had just said, "Guys, you're good. You got it. Don't worry, be happy." But that's not Jesus' final message. Instead, he has some challenging words, some downright daunting words. It's about judgment. The most important thing when Jesus talks about judgment is that he says he will judge. He will be the one to separate the sheep from the goats. It's not your task. It's not my task. We wouldn't be any good at it. We're not good at making that judgment. It's not ours. It's God's to make. It's actually no flattery to be a sheep or a goat. If you've been around sheep or goats, they're not brilliant creatures. They're smelly, dirty. It's no flattery. And what do we do now, like sheep and goats? I've told you the story before about when I was on sabbatical 7 or 8 years ago. I was traveling with a buddy in northern Scotland, and we stopped at a pub, and the guy next to me is chatting me up. And finally I said, "What do you do?" He said, "I'm a shepherd." He just told a pastor that he's a shepherd. Like, I want to talk about shepherding. One of the things we got to, I asked him, I said, why is it always sheep and goats? You think you just have a flock of sheep or a flock of goats. It's always sheep and goats. Why is that? He said, I don't know. I think they just do better together. And I love that. I think we in the church, we may not agree on everything. We may be different. We're going to be better together. Better together. What do we do while we are together? I love how simple Jesus keeps this, right? What saves you? What doesn't? It's something very simple. It's something very doable. You don't have to have complex theological understandings. It's just so simple. Verses. Sometimes people come to me with a Bible verse or 5 Bible verses about some topic or another, and I don't mind that. I've read them before, but I'm happy to sit down and talk with people about Bible verses. If numbers of Bible verses matter, if you take that 212 in Matthew and, I don't know, quadruple, quintuple, sextuple it, I don't have the right verb, that would be the number of verses in the Bible that say to us most clearly what I've been saying the last few weeks, is that in the Bible the poor are never vilified, the poor are never blamed. The poor are always and everywhere to be the objects of our attention, our love, our caring. Our generosity is something that we do freely, is something that we do joyfully. It's just what you do, and our judgment seems to depend on it. I don't know, we get busy, we get distracted, we have sins of omission, we fail to do what we could do. We have sins of pity. It's a sin just to pity people. We have the sin of blame. We have the sin of what I call the measly effort. I'll give $1 to the guy at the stoplight. That'll cover me. I'll be good. And Jesus is talking about salvation. I have to confess to you, you probably know this. You've been around me very long. I'm a little under-attentive, if I look at my preaching record over time, of talking about salvation and how for you to get into heaven. Some of it, I think, is when I was a kid growing up, when I went to church, I would go with my grandparents. I was with them a lot, went to church a lot, and their pastor every Sunday preached a hellfire damnation sermon that scared the daylights out of me. And then he would have an altar call. If anybody out there has not accepted Christ, come forward so you can go to heaven. And no one came, week after week. And I'm a little kid, I'm turning around thinking, the 27 people in Oakboro, North Carolina are already saved. Let's talk about something else. Anyway, it's just a thing. We talk about a lot of things. We talk about the healing of our past. We talk about strength for today. We talk about hope for tomorrow. We talk about the tasks that God has given us. I tend to think if we keep all that organized and moving forward, of course, we'll be in heaven. It's a matter of, people could ask the question in light of today's passage. They might say, Jesus is saying salvation depends on, have I done these things for these people? I thought salvation depended on me having faith in the grace of Christ. It's a false dichotomy. It's a false dichotomy. It's just a matter of sticking close to Jesus. I told you a few weeks back about my friend Robert Lutz, who has gone on to glory. Robert traveled with me to Israel, to Turkey, Italy. And when I'm with my groups, I'm always trying to keep up with people. Are they all here? And at first, I couldn't see Robert anywhere. The reason I couldn't see Robert anywhere is he was right there. He was like glued to my back. I never had to worry about Robert being far away. Anything I did, Robert did. If you stick close to Jesus, you can't help but do the things that Jesus did. Jesus touched the untouchables. Jesus cared for the people that nobody else cared for. If we stick close to Jesus, if we love him, if we believe in him, we will stick close to him, and those things will just come. Judgment, by the way, I think I mentioned this a while back. The theologian Gerhard Lofink has this very interesting idea that the way judgment will work is that after you die, everything that ever happened to you will be clear to you, right? So you'll see everything that you ever did, and that will include the mistakes that you know about, the dumb things that you know about. That could take a while to pay attention to those. But then it's also the dumb stuff that you didn't notice, that you didn't know. You hurt somebody, you didn't mean to hurt them, you didn't know that you hurt them. You said something and it set in process some events that you said something that hurt this person's feelings. They were in a bad mood, who knows what happened there. And all that will become clear to you, not so you'll feel like a schmuck, but so that you'll understand the depth of the mercy of God. Like my whole person, my whole life is redeemed by God. In the meantime, sheep and goats, we can be incredibly useful. We can be useful to God. I read something from my birthday. A friend of mine gave me a biography of Edith Wilson. Edith Wilson, Woodrow Wilson, his wife died while he was in the White House. Then he fell in love with and married Edith, and she did a great job of protecting him when he had a stroke so the public wouldn't know that he was disabled. When World War I began and the United States got into it, she wanted to set a good example for the country by making sacrifices, everyone pulling together. She decided it would be a brilliant idea. Instead of paying somebody to mow the White House lawn, that she knew somebody with 18 sheep, and they brought the sheep in, and the sheep would nibble the grass. And this seemed like a great idea. People came, loved to see the sheep. The sheep, of course, multiplied. The sheep, of course, nibbled the bushes and flowers. The sheep caused dogs in the neighborhood to bark incessantly. There was one sheep, the alpha male, Old Ike. He would headbutt the White House staff. They didn't like having the sheep around. Finally, though, the sheep became very, very woolly, excessively woolly, and so Edith Wilson thought it'd be a good idea to have the Department of Agriculture come. There are photos of this. Google it. And they sheared the sheep, massive piles of wool. She had it distributed among the 48 states. They had auctions to sell off the wool. They raised $50,000 for the Red Cross for the war effort. Like, even sheep can be useful. There's something about you that can be useful to God. It doesn't have to be heroic, but when you do anything making yourself useful to God, God's reign becomes manifest. People begin to see it. They begin to understand it. Part of our project here is to try to help you find your way toward advanced, deeper levels of being useful for God. You might start as a beginner kind of thing. You buy a gift card for the Mary Market. Outstanding. You make a contribution to the church's mission and outreach fund. That is outstanding. That's a great starting point, but then you want to go a little deeper. You want to go a little closer to Jesus. You're still kind of back there where John Clarkson is. Like, you want to get up closer, like Robert Lutz. And so you do something like you volunteer at Trinity's table. I'd love to go over there. We're serving food to folks at South Tryon on Thursdays. And you get to know people's names. And you start to hear their story. The two guys, if you go there, I promise you'll meet Robert and you'll also meet Robert. They're always just right next to each other. I can't keep them straight. One's Robert and one's Robert. I thought that was a funny line. And then something else happens. Instead of going to Jackson Hole one of the weeks of your vacation, you're on a mission trip somewhere. Oh my goodness, things are happening. And then the ultimate goal, since we're having communion today, is you start eating with other people. Heard a story of a woman in our church. She was tutoring a child. She got to know the child's mother. The mother bragged that she was a great cook. And so boldly, our woman said, I'd love to come to your house and eat your great cooking. And the woman was a little embarrassed. She said, my home's, it's not the kind of house you'd be comfortable in. She didn't miss a beat. She said, would you like to come to our house and cook? And we could all eat together. She said, yeah, I'd love to do that. So she came to a house over here in Myers Park, whipped up a great meal. They had an absolute blast together. This reminded me of a story I heard recently about a friend of mine and his wife who went to Jimmy and Rosalind Carter's church in Plains, Georgia. And when the service was over, it broke up, and they were kind of among the last to leave. Jimmy finally said, do you have somewhere to eat lunch? And they said, well, no, not really. And Carter says, would you like to eat lunch with us? Like, what's the answer to that? Like, no, we're going to go to Wendy's. We'd love to eat lunch with you. Yes. So Carter says, can you cook? They said yes. So Carter reaches in his wallet and pulls out a recipe. It's Rosalind's recipe for lasagna. Can you make this? No pressure. And so they went to the Carter's house and cooked. Isn't that fabulous, right? It's all about, that's when the kingdom begins to dawn. You eat with unexpected people. You find yourself in the company of others. Sheep, goats, we're all together. The thing that we realize is, of course, the hungry ones, we're not the haves and they're the have-nots. We're all hungry. We're all imprisoned by something. We're all thirsty. We're all strangers to each other and to God. Jesus is the one who comes. He feeds us. He clothes us. He welcomes us. And when we stay close to him, we can't do much else. Karl Barth, great theologian, said, Christians are people, I love this, Christians are people with a definite passion. In no circumstances can Christians be cowards, bored, boring, or commonplace. I think my sermon is, friends, do not be boring. Do not be bored. Show some excitement, show some enthusiasm, show some passion. Over and over in the Bible, it just gives us the simple recipe for what to do. Help those who are hurting. Never have a stray, hard word for someone else. Love those who are in need. Find yourself breaking bread with them. And when that happens, people will know, Christ really is the King. Thanks be to God.